Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're going to look at a glass box, but I don't want you to just see it as, a decoration or a piece of furniture.
Right.
I want you to see it as a closed-loop life support system.
That is such a crucial distinction right off the bat. Most people see an aquarium as, I don't know, a glorified bowl, but biologically, it's a spaceship.
A spaceship. Okay, you have to explain that one.
Well, think about it. Nothing goes in or out except what you put there. It's a sealed environment floating in, the vacuum of your living room.
Okay, I see where you go.
The inhabitants, the fish, the shrimp, they are totally dependent on the engineering of that little world to process their ways to get oxygen and, to literally keep them from suffocating. It is a complex engineered ecosystem.
And that engineering is exactly where we're going today. We're looking past the fish. Sorry, fish, you're not the story. We're focusing on the engine room.
The life support.
Exactly. We're dissecting a fascinating blog post from the site qianmeng.org. It's titled, Notes on Fishkeeping Part 178, Building a Custom Multi-Stage DIY Filter.
And this was published pretty recently, January 22, 2026.
Now, before we get into the nuts and bolts, or I guess the sand and gravel here,
Right.
we have to talk about the author, Ang. He describes himself as an old software plumber. And that description, it seems to inform everything he does.
It really does. Software plumber is such a great term. It suggests someone who works on the back end, the pipes of the internet, data flows, server stuff. He's deep in the floss world.
Free and Libre open source software.
Yeah.
Which usually comes with a certain mindset, right? Transparency. You want to see the code. You want to know how it all works.
Yeah.
You don't just want some black box.
Exactly. You want to see the mechanism. And if you look at his other notes on Haskell, notes on Elixir, and then right next to them you have notes on gardening, notes on photography.
And of course, notes on Fishkeeping, Part 178.
Part 178.
That number just stopped me in my tracks. That is not a quick start guide. It's a massive iterative journey.
It shows he's a true tinkerer. He is not looking for a set-it-and-forget-it solution. He's constantly observing, tweaking, debugging. He treats his hobbies like he treats his code.
So our mission for this deep dive is to unpack his design for this DIY filter. We want to understand why a software guy would reject the store-bought stuff and decide to, engineer his own. What's the logic? And what's the science that makes it better?
And to get there, we have to look at the legacy code, so to speak, the status quo.
Ang mentions right at the start that most hobbyists, especially beginners, they just use the standard black sponge filters.
Oh, yeah.
I think everyone's seen one. It's that dark gray foam thing sitting in the corner of a tank, bubbling away.
Right. And, to be fair, it's the hello world of aquariums. It works, it's cheap, it's simple, it does provide some basic filtration, but it's a compromise.
How so? In what way is it a compromise?
Well, it's a single layer. That one sponge has to do everything. It has to catch the physical dirt, the poop, the uneaten food, and it also has to house the bacteria that clean the water chemically. So eventually the dirt clogs the pores and it starts to, choke off the bacteria. It's just inefficient. It's mixing two very different jobs into one component.
So Ang's whole motivation, as he puts it, was to resume this DIY approach. Because he wanted to get beyond just basic survival. He wanted to engineer a system that really improves the water quality.
He calls it a layered design, and that's the key concept here. He's proposing a custom multi-stage filter.
Multi-stage. Sounds like a rocket launch. But I feel like it's more about nature, isn't it?
It's basically biomimicry. If you think about how water gets cleaned in a river, it doesn't just go through one big sponge.
Right, no.
It flows over rocks, it seeps through sand, it settles in pools. Each of those steps removes a different kind of contaminant. Ang is trying to replicate that inside a container.
So instead of that jack-of-all-trades sponge, he's building a team of specialists.
A team of specialists. Exactly. He wants the mechanical filtration catching the solids to be separate from the biological filtration processing the chemicals.
Okay, let's build this thing in our head. So we've got a container, we're filling it in layers. What's the very first layer the water is going to hit?
So the top layer is the mechanical barrier. Ang specifies using fine sand and gravel.
Sand and gravel, that feels incredibly low-tech for a software plumber. I was expecting, I don't know, carbon fiber or something.
Low-tech, high-efficiency. This is the doormat. Its only job is physical. Ang says it targets large debris, uneaten fish pellets, and detritus.
Detritus, which is just the polite word for fish waste and rotting plants, right? The gunk.
The gunk, the sludge, the stuff you can actually see. The goal of this first layer is just optical clarity. You want to trap those solids before they sink deeper.
Why is that so important? Why not just let them rot at the bottom?
Because as they rot, they consume oxygen and they produce ammonia. If you let that physical gunk get into the next layer, the biological engine room, it just gums up the works. It creates dead zones.
So the sand acts like a fine mesh.
Yes. The water can pass through, but the particles get stranded right on the surface.
It's like a firewall for physical garbage.
That's a perfect analogy. It blocks the malicious packets, the waste, so the server, the biological filter, can run smoothly.
Okay, so the water's passed through the sand. It looks clear now. The chunks are gone. But like you said, clear water isn't necessarily safe water. Now we get to layer 2, the middle layer.
This is the biological engine. This is the heart of it. Ang suggests using materials like volcanic rock, ceramic rings, or bioballs.
I've seen those ceramic rings. They look like little pasta noodles. And volcanic rock is, well, it's just a rock with holes in it. What makes them so special?
It's not what they're made of. It's their shape, their geometry. We are looking for one thing here, and that is surface area.
But a rock is a rock. How much surface area can it really have?
Well, a smooth river stone has very little, just its outside skin. But volcanic rock, it's filled with holes, tiny pores, microscopic tunnels. A single handful could have the surface area of a tennis court.
A tennis court. Okay, and why do we need a tennis court inside our filter?
We're building housing, we're building real estate. Ang writes that this provides a massive surface area for beneficial bacteria to colonize.
All right, we need to pause here. A little chemistry 101, because this is where people get lost. We're not filtering dirt anymore. We're farming bacteria. Why do we want bacteria in our clean water?
This brings us to the nitrogen cycle. It is the single most important concept in keeping fish alive. If you don't get this, you can't keep fish, period.
Okay, walk us through it. The fish eats, the fish produces waste. What happens next, chemically?
That waste breaks down and releases ammonia. And ammonia is incredibly toxic. I mean, it burns fish gills, causes stress. In high enough concentrations, it just kills them fast.
So if you just had that sand layer, the mechanical filter, the water would look crystal clear, but it would be a toxic bath of ammonia.
Correct. You'd have sparkling, deadly water. You can't filter ammonia out with a net. You have to process it chemically, and that's what the bacteria do.
So the bacteria living in those little volcanic rock condos, they eat the ammonia.
In a sense. The first team of bacteria, Nitrosomonas, they consume ammonia and they convert it into nitrites.
Nitrites, with an I.
With an I, yes. Now, here's the catch. Nitrates are also toxic. Not quite as bad as ammonia, but they stop the fish's blood from carrying oxygen.
So we're not safe yet. We've just traded one poison for another.
Exactly. But then the second team of bacteria shows up, Nitrospira, and they take those nitrates and convert them into nitrates with an A.
And nitrates are the end of the line.
Nitrates are, as Eng says, less harmful. Fish can tolerate much higher levels of nitrates, and you usually remove them with a simple weekly water change. Or if you have live plants, the plants just suck them up as fertilizer.
So this whole DIY filter is literally a sewage treatment plant.
It is. It turns a stagnant box of water into a living, self-cleaning entity. And that is why the software plumber picked volcanic rock. He knows that to process that data, the ammonia, he needs maximum processing power. And in this world, that means bacteria.
Okay, so we have the mechanical layer, the sands, the biological layer, the rocks. But here's the part that always gets me about these builds. How does the water move? He doesn't mention a pump. There's no motor.
Nope. He uses something far more elegant. He specifies an air stone at the base.
An air stone. The little blue block that just makes bubbles?
That's it.
How does a stream of bubbles move water through layers of sand and dense rock? I feel like I'm missing something here.
It's all about the physics of flow, specifically the airlift principle.
Okay.
Imagine a bubble at the bottom of a tube. Air is lighter than water, so it rises.
Sure.
As that stream of bubbles goes up, it drags water molecules with it. But more importantly, it creates a pressure differential.
A vacuum.
Exactly.
Okay.
As the water and bubbles leave that space at the bottom, low pressure is created, and nature, well, it hates a vacuum, so new water rushes in to fill that space.
And where does that new water come from?
Since the air stone is buried at the very bottom of the filter, underneath all the rocks and sand, the only way for water to get there is to be pulled down through the layers.
That is just so clever. So the simple act of bubbles going up pulls the dirty water down through the filter and then pushes the clean water out.
It creates, as he puts it, constant circulation. And there is a dual benefit here that is so important for the biology we just talked about.
What's the second benefit?
Remember our bacteria, friends. The ones eating the ammonia, they're aerobic bacteria. They need oxygen to live.
Oh, and because we are driving the whole system with air.
We are delivering a steady supply of oxygen directly to them. If you used a normal water pump, you'd just be moving water, not necessarily oxygenating it. An airlift hyperoxygenates the exact zone where the bacteria live. It's like putting a turbocharger on the biological engine.
And there are no moving parts to break.
That's the software plumber mindset again. A motor can burn out, an impeller can get jammed, but physics doesn't break. As long as the air pump is running, the airlift will work. It minimizes failure points.
It's robust. It's elegant.
It's open source hardware engineering.
I want to zoom out on that software plumber idea again. Because Aang isn't just a fish keeper. As we noted, he has notes on Haskell, notes on gardening.
It really speaks to a specific type of intellect. It's systems thinking.
Systems thinking. Break that down in this context.
In software, especially the kind he works with, you don't look at things in isolation. You look at inputs, processing outputs, you look for bottlenecks, for efficiencies.
And garbage collection.
Literally. In computer science, garbage collection is freeing up memory so the computer doesn't crash. In the aquarium, the sand is the garbage collector. The bacteria are the processor.
So he's looking at his fish tank like a code base that needs to be refactored.
Refactoring is the perfect word. The standard sponge filter is legacy code. It works, but it's messy and inefficient. This DIY filter is the optimized, clean code version. He's debugging an ecosystem.
And that connection to notes on gardening is also really interesting.
It's completely consistent. Gardening is just systems thinking for soil. You have a nitrogen cycle in soil, too. You have compost for mechanical breakdown and soil bacteria for biological breakdown. He's seeing the same patterns everywhere.
In code, in the garden, in the fish tank.
It's all about creating a self-sustaining, stable environment, whether it's a server that stays up or a tank that keeps fish alive.
And there's a certain humility in the title, too. Notes on fish keeping. Not the ultimate guide, it's just notes. Part 178.
Which implies there were 177 previous attempts, or at least 177 observations. He sees expertise not as a destination, but as a continuous process.
And speaking of process, there's a really relatable moment at the end of the post. After all this brilliant design, all this theory,
He admits, although I've yet to install filtration for our outdoor tanks, I believe now is the perfect time to resume this DIY approach.
he hasn't actually built it yet.
It's the universal struggle of the hobbyist, isn't it? The design phase is so clean, so perfect in your head. The execution, actually getting your hands wet, that's the hard part.
But he sees writing the note as the catalyst to get it done.
Yeah. Writing it down makes it real. It organizes the thoughts. It moves a project from someday to now.
So to recap the architecture of this life support system, we have a DIY container.
Layer 1. Fine sand and gravel, that's the mechanical barrier, catches the visible gunk.
Layer 2, the biological engine. Volcanic rock or something similar, high surface area.
And this is home to the bacteria that do the critical work of turning toxic ammonia into much safer nitrates.
And the power source.
A simple air stone, using the physics of an airlift to pull water through and deliver oxygen at the same time.
It really is a beautiful example of using simple raw materials to solve a complex biological problem.
It's low-tech materials delivering high-tech results. It's efficient, it's cheap, and biologically, it's just superior to a lot of the standard black box solutions.
And it's all driven by a mindset that refuses to accept the default settings. It's about looking at a system and asking, how can I optimize this flow?
And I think the big takeaway for me is remembering that clear doesn't mean clean. Just because you can't see the problem doesn't mean the toxicity isn't there.
That is a powerful metaphor to leave on. As you go about your week, I want you to think about that idea of multi-stage filtration in your own life.
How do you mean?
Well, Aang applies software logic to nature, but we can apply that nature logic back to our daily grind. Think about your information diet, the stress at work.
Do you have a mechanical filter?
Exactly. Do you have a way to catch the noise, the distractions, the large debris before it clogs up your mental space?
And then do you have a biological filter, a process, maybe it's meditation or exercise, to process the invisible toxicity, the stress, the anxiety, the ammonia of modern life?
Because if you don't process it, it just builds up, and eventually the system crashes.
I think we could all learn a thing or two from the software plumber. build a few more layers into our own life support systems.
Absolutely. Thanks for sorting through the details with us on this one.
Always a pleasure.
We'll catch you next time on The Deep Dive.